Thank you so much.
For sure. So tonight, we're going to talk about the financial end of things. And we wind up talking about it tonight, and we wind up talking about it next week as well. How many of you did do your little quiz? You didn't have to do it for tonight, but how many of you did? You could maybe just yell or raise your hand or something. Okay, so we'll look at it after, as we're going through the presentation. Most of you will probably not have been one person. You'll have had a mix, and so if you haven't done it, you'll see that. But part of what I want to talk to you tonight is, like, there's a certain amount of technical stuff, because we're supposed to learn a little bit about Excel. I'm not gonna bore you too much with that, but I do have a little tool that you can use that'll be helpful, and then we'll sort of find out a little bit more about how to manage money. Some people are really good at it and some people aren't. So I'm gonna start off with sharing my PowerPoint, and please stop me anywhere along the way. I purposely did not make it super technical, because then nobody's going to learn anything. So I will share my screen. And from the beginning. Okay, whoops, I think I went too far. Okay, so to be or not to be is the question, and are you in control of your money or aren't you? Because oftentimes what happens is people feel like the money controls them, and you definitely don't want that. So we have, like, these simple routines in our life. Everybody, eats at certain times, or eats, the grazing, if that's what you like to do. You have certain times where you clean and sleep and play and that sort of thing. Although COVID's certainly putting an upset into how we do all our regular routines. But most people aren't so good at having a routine about money. And I mean, some of you may be, which is awesome, but it is not something that that most people do in a really organized way. So one of the things that I want you to do, and I have a little workbook that I'm going to send out to everybody as well. And I want you to think about where you're going to be next year, or several years from now, or maybe 5 years down the road, once it's, for example, like Lauren that's going to be graduated, or Ivy that's going to be graduated from university. Where do you see yourselves? And oftentimes if you do that, it helps you think differently about what's important, or where you want to spend your time and how you want to spend your money. So one of the strange things about money is as well that people will talk more about anything in their life, but they don't generally talk about money. It's like this taboo thing. People will talk more about sex than they will about the financial part of their life. And so as a result, there's this expectation that you, just because you earn it, you know how to make it work for you. And I can't emphasize enough that how you could be amazing at what you do, and if you don't get your money working in the right way, you will not be successful. And that's not what we want. Our whole goal for everything with this program is to give you the tools to be able to go out there and make a really good success. So without having that control in your life, it doesn't really work super well. So these are some of the things I want you to think about, and maybe in some cases you might need to do some homework. So you want to figure out where you are today, and then some of the things you have to ask yourself is, like, what kind of bank account do you currently have, and is that going to work, or is that not going to work? For a number of you right now that are sort of starting out, because I think we've got the gamut with people. Some of you have had experience and are have done projects, and some of you are just thinking about doing projects, or just thinking about launching your businesses. So you would be well advised to set up a separate bank account for your for your business, even if it's small, rather than have it commingled with your existing bank accounts. Because what tends to happen is then you can't necessarily tell whether you're really making money or not making money if, you know, some of your regular bank account is paying for some of your expenses, and then some of your regular expenses you're also using in there. And then when you earn money from a piece or from a production, if that goes into the same bank account, you can't really figure out how you're doing. So that's not a great thing. You want to do some research on what kind of fees are there that you would have to pay for certain bank accounts. So depending on what your plans are, oftentimes when you start out, you're at the beginning of your business, and so you're not going to make tons and tons of money. So don't get too excited about setting up like a corporation. And we're going to have somebody talk more about the business structures, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. But you may just very simply need a separate bank account. You don't necessarily need to call it something special, because if you go in and you tell the bank you want to open up a business account, they usually will charge you more fees than if you just go in and say, I need to open up a separate bank account. So, I mean, as your business grows and things change, that may, there may be a need for that. But at this point, when you're at the beginnings, it's always good to sort of be cautious with your monies. And sort of, we'll talk a little bit more tonight about, interest rates, and not that they're very high anymore, but nevertheless, talk about them a little bit. So do you have a plan for achieving your goals? And I know that they talked about SMART goals, which is like an overarching thing about how you're going to figure out how to run your business. These would be where the goals connect or should connect with your finances. So one of the things that I want to sort of reinforce with you is the fact that it really important when you're doing your financial piece to have like really breaking down the goals into maybe even that it's, the next 2 weeks I'm going to have this happen. So you're going to like go out and research what bank account that you would need, or you're going to structure some sort of a plan that's going to be how you figure out how much money either you need or how much money you plan to earn, or various things like that. So it's really helpful to break it into smaller bits, because as soon as you start talking about this in regular planning, they will talk to you about doing a 5-year plan. When you do that, especially in today's world, even more complicated in COVID's today's world, it's too long away and it's too hard for you to really grasp what that's going to feel like. Nothing wrong with looking at that 5-year, but then you want to keep bringing it back to something so that you can see the progress that you're making. And a number of you did send me your goals, and some of you haven't. So I guess one of my questions is, do you have any? And for sure, if you don't, then you want to work on those a little bit. And I would like everybody to send me their goals, and I do give you a little bit of feedback if I think that needs to be tweaked. If we're kind of like in the halfway-ish part of the program, and so you don't really want to leave everything till the end, because it's going to feel like a giant job if you do that. Okay. So one of the things that gets everybody in trouble is like figuring out where you spend money. And I would say 99% of people that I've found, it's the little things that they don't actually realize where they're spending money. It's the fact that they're, and I mean, this reflects back into your business as well, because it's easy to get caught up in, and maybe we'll just pick on you, Lauren, for an example of like liking to try all the different things, which is awesome. But you could do the same sort of thing, getting caught up with like buying different kinds of supplies, and maybe having a bunch of supplies that you're not really using, but it just seemed like a good idea. Again, if you bring it back to having sort of some sort of set goals that connect, so that let's say that you know, what you're wanting to do is either work on, because some of you have had more than one thing, work on a book or work on a piece of music or work on a certain kind of art that you're going to, this is where you're going to spend the next 2 months or 3 months producing something that's, you know, using oils or using watercolors or using something completely different. I think it's Jasmine that does mainly the graphite and stuff like that. So then you would like tend to want to focus on what are the supplies I need for that, or what are the things that I'm going to need to produce that book or to produce that piece of music, or to launch that theater production. So you kind of then reassess, where am I spending that money, and is that money furthering my interest, or is that money just, you know, really not being useful? Certainly having an emergency fund, and just like you might personally want to have an emergency fund, it's a good idea to have that cushion or build that cushion with your business as well, because life happens. And for example, maybe you've rented some space and something happens and it destroys some of your supplies or something like that. You need to be in a position that you can handle those kind of things that will go wrong and still be okay. One of the things we haven't talked about so far in any of the things that we've seen in our previous presentations is insurance. So again, there's all different kinds of insurance. Obviously, if you have space, there would be property insurance, but for all of you that have something that you're creating, it may be that you have protection against theft or damages. It may be that you need something that's like a liability insurance if you have people that are coming onto your premises, or if you're displaying stuff in an exhibition area. Sometimes you need to have insurance for those special events. So it's important to go and have some research that you do as to, you know, what insurance you might currently have. If you're doing most of your work in your house, then maybe you need to check and see if there's riders that you need on your insurance policy to be able to cover the things that you're creating there, because they may be just looking at general house pieces, so that it's you know, your furniture and this, that, and the other thing, and it's not going to cover your artwork. So it's really important that you do your homework and find out whether or not you've got coverage for that, and there's no ugly surprises. And particularly when you're starting out in your business, whatever it's costing you for that particular month, at the end of the month, have you made enough money that there's money left over? Or are you in a position where you're going into overdraft, or you have to have credit to survive? So again, those are like important things that you want to look at and figure out. So it's a matter of like tracking that a little bit. So it is a bit of a black hole where the money goes, because what tends to happen is we do what we like to do. And most people, I bet if I went around the room and asked you, oh, what's your favorite thing to do? It's not tracking your finances. It's doing your art. And so as a result, it's like, where does the money disappear to? So one of the things I would recommend trying is doing a bit of a survey of yourself. So ideally a person does it for 3 months, but sometimes that's a little bit too long a time frame and people get fed up. So certainly I would say to do it over a 4 to 6 week period isn't such a tough thing to do. And one of the things we didn't really ask people is, I don't know whether any of you are working with a partner or with a group in any of the endeavors that you're trying to do. And so as a result, sometimes there's more than one person involved. And in some cases, it may be your spouse. I think it's maybe Melanie that works with her spouse. And so when people are doing that, then there's more than one of you that might be spending money. And it's important to figure out what everybody is spending. And so maybe you give people certain responsibilities and they track the part that they're dealing with. So maybe somebody looks after the heat and the hydro and the insurance and that for the space that you're in, and somebody else is responsible for the supplies or for the advertising and stuff like that. If somebody winds up spending money that isn't what you may be approved of, or each other, then that's where I sort of say you do the tracking separately, and you don't necessarily point fingers at each other as to who spent money where, but you come back together again and look at this and then match that up to those, those goals, whether or not that made sense. Use something really simple. So don't do something that's like super fancy, because then again, the more you make it into a bigger task, the worse it is. It can be just as simple as, having a bulletin board and you thumbtack all of the receipts on there, or I've certainly seen, and I think it's in my little plan that I'm going to give you, you can stick a nail in a piece of wood and you put all the receipts there, but you track everything. So every loonie, everything that happens. And if the family members are involved or there's other artistic members in your group, everybody gets involved. And then though, you don't leave it sit there with all of these receipts for a long, long time. Generally speaking, you kind of once a week clean out those receipts, and then you can put them in envelopes, or you can put them in folders or whatever that are listed with the categories, and then you don't need to worry about it until the end of the month or whatever. So again, this is where when I talk about making the smaller goals, it's just a matter of even setting up a little system like this and then making sure you're doing it that once a week. So record the tracking regularly, don't wait, which is what I said. So weekly, so that it's not a big job, and then set up the categories. So, it may be that it's advertising, or it's some of what we learned last week from Anik, that it's your social media stuff. So what's it costing you for the website, or for doing those extra posts on Facebook, or whatever the case may be. And then set time. So, like I said, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. And then you reorganize your spending so that it makes sense. So like if there were spending happening where you didn't think it was useful, you're going to reorganize that. And I created a book that I'm going to give you to use. It's called the Prosperity Plan, because nobody likes budgeting. It's sort of like saying, do you want to go on a diet? There's not going to be a bunch of people clapping their hands and saying, yes, I want to go on a diet. Same sort of thing for a budget. Nobody wants to do that. But you want the money to work for you. You don't want to feel like you're discouraged with your finances. So the more you can be in control of it, the better off you're going to be. This is one of the things that I'm going to show you. And so I'll just show you this on the screen, and then we'll go and have a look at it before we do our break. So this is just an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to give this to everybody. And it's just easy to do, and it adds everything up for you. So I'm going to just stop sharing this for a second, and I'm going to show you the Excel if I get lucky with things. Okay. So I will share you my Excel now. Okay, so you guys can see that, right? I hope. So what it does is it allows, it allows you to do your tracking, but easy. So you can put in here that it's, $50 this week. It's $100 in this carrot this week, and my thing is not working 100%. And so I messed up these cells, but anyways, so it goes over and it does, this is what it's per month. This is what it is for the year. So it just makes it easy for you to use. And then like at the end, it's tallying it up down here for all of your expenses. So it just is an easy way to do things. So the spreadsheets that Kristen gave you when you're doing some of that planning is fine, but before you get there, you're going to have to figure out what's it costing you. And all of these categories on the side here, you can type over those. Like I put in a bunch of things that I thought you might be using, but you could put in whatever you wanted here. And then it just works really simple for you to figure out what it's costing you. And that also helps you, like, I think it was Jasmine that mentioned about figuring out how to price things. So one of the things you want to do is, what is it costing you? So obviously, if you've got like a space, you've got all those things to pay for. You'd all probably have a cell phone, which you would use for your work. Then you've got things like the advertising, if you're doing that, your materials or supplies. So what's it costing you? And you'd have to kind of eventually break this down into what is it per piece. But certainly when you've bought your supplies, you would then determine how long does the paint last, or how much does it cost you to do your music production? What's it going to cost you for doing your book illustrations or whatever? Do you have to buy other equipment? So if you had computer equipment or office equipment or some special supplies that you had to purchase for your music or something like that, those are all things you'd want to put in and figure out. Potentially in some cases it may be, how much money do I have to make before I can afford to buy some of the bigger supplies, or how much do I have to borrow or finance out of my own personal monies. And if you were doing that, you could take it out of your own bank account and put it into your business bank account. So I will just take that away and go back to here. Did anybody have any questions about that, by the way? It's pretty straightforward. But
I just have a comment to make. I don't have Microsoft and Excel on my computers, but I've done similar spreadsheets using Google. So you can also make Google spreadsheets work for you, but you have to tell it to add up the columns and things.
Okay, so it won't do it by itself?
That's right. You have to, but you can find out, you can just Google how to do it and you can set it all up the same way.
Okay.
Google Docs might be able to open Excel files. It's worked for me. I found it was really cumbersome because it doesn't open them up quite the same way, but Google Spreadsheet, Spreadsheet was easier. Right.
Yeah, so those would be some of the challenges. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit later is that if it's not, like, if this is not your forte, I mean, unfortunately, as you start, you're kind of have to do everything. However, as time goes along, you may find that there's somebody else that would be able to do that. And I mean, if you're using some of what Alessandro said, for example, maybe you could offer to do something artistic for somebody in for free, and they'll look after your financial piece. So it's not just advertising that you might want to look at bartering for your work. Okay. Whoops. Oh yes, right. This is perfect time for this. So when we look at your the financial fitness test, the money personalities helps you understand where you are and whether you need to change or need to look at changing what you learn about your money personalities. We tend to be, I mean, and as I had already said, there's this crazy myth that because we make money, we should just know how everything works about money, which is so not true. And so it's basically, a lot of it comes from how you grew up, who you interacted with in your life, and what impressions they made on you. And again, some people's families and parents tell them a whole lot about money, and other people's families and parents don't talk about it at all. And depending on what the experiences are that your families have had, maybe they, money wasn't their best skill set. And so what they may have taught you actually wasn't helpful. So it really depends. And of course, everybody's got to figure out their own. And so you know, your family is unique and you are unique. And so it's like, what do you understand? And what can you learn that would help you do a better job? So these are the money personalities that you could potentially be. So, and all of them have their own quirks. Doesn't, like, there's no one perfect money personality. But it's important to understand, you know, are you that person that's, you know, the money just flows out of your fingers and you're the person shopping? Or are you that person that is more of a money hoarder, that they're constantly worried about spending a nickel? Are you somebody who's fearful about money, or it gives you huge anxiety? And so, you know, obviously that would be a challenging sort of thing. And are you somebody that you know, you're not a hoarder, but you know, you save and don't really, you're never the one that's going out and doing that little shopping spree and that. And of course, then there's some people, such as our Tibetan person here, who, you know, feels that money is not necessarily a good thing and that they just want to give it all away because they don't really feel they deserve. So it's really tricky, and it doesn't really matter who you are. Those are all challenging things that you have to learn how to deal with. And unfortunately, we take our personality, and as an artist, you're all basically self-employed people. And so as a result, that personality flows into your work. And this makes it even more challenging when you've got, you know, one way of dealing with money or another, and that may or may not be the most effective way to actually be successful. So it just really depends on learning a little bit more about yourself. And we'll like kind of run through the little quiz just so that I make sure that you guys have gone through it, and then see where the other side of it is. And I'll give you guys afterwards the page that it actually gives you the categories, and then it also tells you what are the different ways that you could improve whichever way you lean. And I know Mo had sent me something saying that, oh, he wasn't one specific personality. And I would say for most of you, you probably wouldn't be just, you know, a hoarder or a spendthrift. I mean, certainly there are some of those, but not everybody. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for now, and then give you guys your break. And then we'll come back and do the money quiz and work on the last part of our stuff. So we'll reconvene. So we're back, and we're going to start dissecting a little bit more about how this is connected to your particular money personality. So I'll go through the questions for those of you who didn't look at them yet. So it's A, B, C, D, E, and you just choose the one that speaks most about how you would feel. So as far as spending money, A is I love spending money and sometimes spend more than I earn. B, I hope to have enough money to take care of unexpected expenses. C, I don't follow where money goes and don't want to. I focus on more important aspects of my life. D, I'd rather save my money than spend it. Spending money makes me nervous. Or E, I enjoy spending money as long as I keep saving at the same time. And then when it comes to saving money, are you A, I have trouble saving money and this bothers me sometimes. B, I ought to be saving money, but I never seem to get around to it. C, I save only for absolute necessities. D, saving comes naturally to me. I am regular and consistent about it. Or E, I enjoy saving large amounts of money and think about how to save more. Regarding your budget, are you A, I hate the word budget, I prefer a spending plan. I think we all like that sounding better. B, I don't have a budget and never want one. My money will take care of itself. C, I take pride in living so simply that I've never needed a budget. D, I enjoy following my budget closely. Or E, I rework my budget often to figure out ways to have more money to spend and save. With regard to financial record keeping, are you A, I keep some records but have trouble organizing them and finding them? B, I'm not even sure which records I should be keeping. C, I don't keep records. I hate to spend my time this way. D, I enjoy keeping careful records. And E, I keep reworking my records to figure out ways to make my money work better for me. In regard to credit cards, is it A, I tend to use credit cards often and make minimum payments on the balance? B, I don't take much notice of the status of my credit cards. I often forget to pay even the monthly minimum. C, I prefer not to have credit cards at all. If I have one, I use it as little as possible. In D, I always tended to avoid using credit. I prefer paying by cash or check. E, I don't mind running up large charges, but think about them and pay them off quickly. And with regard to emergencies, are you A, I keep thinking that I will have enough to start saving for emergencies soon, but I'm still not quite there yet. B, I don't have enough saved to provide for emergencies. I just hope for the best. C, I have no money set aside for emergencies, and I almost never think about if something bad were to happen. D, I try to save regularly for an emergency fund. Or E, I have put aside a sizable amount for emergencies, but still don't worry about them. Oh, but I still worry about them. You tally up how many A, B, C's, D's, etc. That you will receive, and then that gives you which person you might be. And if we look at what those personalities work out to be, if you lean on A most, then you're the spender, and saving is a challenge. If you have more B's, then you're an avoider, and money just makes you feel uncomfortable. C, you're a money monk. You don't want much in regards to financial assets and things in life, and it causes you to feel guilty. So for some reason you feel you don't deserve. D, you're a hoarder. So it's really difficult to spend because you want to just sit on the pile of money and not do anything with it. Or E, if you're mainly getting more E's than anything else, you're the amasser. And so, you know, there's always plenty of money that you have sitting in your bank account, and you know, are the person that's doing investing and that sort of thing. So that makes you happy. And what will be for most of you, you'll find that it's a combination. It's not just one of these, it's a combination of any number of these. And so you'll see which way you lean a little more heavily. There's also some tips that we're going to look at as to if you want to, you know, change that money personality a bit, what would you do to do that? So if you're the spender, you don't want to go on the binge. So you don't want to be, I feel like I deserve something, and so I'm going and I'm just spending. Or if you feel bad, I'm just going and I'm spending. So what you want to do is set up something where you start even a small regular savings, so that then you're able to deal with those things when you want to go on some sort of spending spree, because there is money there for you. And this isn't just in your personal life, this is also important in your business life, because you don't want to just wind up going out and buying tons of equipment or buying tons of supplies without really understanding whether you need them or whether you can afford it at this time. If you're the avoider, then what you will find is if you set up a system that puts things into place and you can see how your finances are coming and going, that tracking will be helpful, and it'll stop you feeling worried about the money. It will take that stressor away from your life. If you're the money monk, then what you would want to do to try to change that is to treat yourself sometimes. Go on the little splurge, as opposed to the person who keeps on binging. You want to actually part with some of that money. And to start doing this, oftentimes it's useful, like make a wish list or that bucket list, that what's really important to you. What are the things that you really, really want to do? And then it would allow you to spend the money without feeling that it was the wrong thing to do. If you happen to lean more towards the hoarder, then you need to look at, can I teach myself to spend some money? So it's not just about, you know, money, grabbing and keeping it and not doing anything with it. So stop looking at your books less. Stop, you know, obsessing about the money, and look at, you know, what are things that you could comfortably spend on. And if you're the amasser, again, it's not as intense as the person who's the hoarder, but you want to do something for fun that's not connected to money. So you don't want to be always concerned about how much money is in the bank and how much are you investing. You want to look at various types of things. So one of the things we want to take time to figure out in our session today is how do you make the most of your finances so that you're in that strong position to be able to have your business go forward successfully. So important to look at the debts that you have or the debts that you might wind up creating as to what are those interest rates. And although the interest rates are lower now than they were, they are still eating away at your hard-earned savings. So it's key to see which of those debts have which interest rates connected to them. For instance, if it's credit card, then that's the first thing you'd want to be paying off, because that's double digit, usually in the 18–19% range. And so you're looking at that costing you an awful lot. And that is really useful if you turn around and do that all the way through. You can also do things that will be a positive reinforcement for you to start setting up something and putting yourself on track. So I've often recommended to people that you create either, and in your cases, maybe you could sit down and draw something or paint something, but it could also be a photograph of something that's really that goal that you want to achieve. So maybe it's a little storefront, maybe it's you know, getting together X number of dollars in order for you to start putting your book together, or opening up a studio, or putting that film on, or doing an exhibition. So you put that up on your fridge or your bathroom mirror or something like that, where you see it on a regular basis, and it just helps you understand why are you changing some things that maybe feel a little bit uncomfortable or new to you. This is the reason, this is why you're doing it, and it makes you feel more committed to keeping that going. You can also, for your own personal situation, set up somewhat of an allowance system for that, you know, money that's in your pockets when you're just walking around that gets spent on a coffee or incidental items, because those are usually the things people don't track and are usually the things that get people in trouble. It's not usually the big things. Most people can tell me what their rent's going to be, or what their utilities cost and that sort of thing. And even from a business perspective, it might be tougher if I, you know, went around and asked everybody, what are you spending on supplies, or what are you spending on advertising, or how much do you spend on food and things like that while you're working, or when you're out with the public. So it's one of the things that the banks have designed that are really good for them, but not so good for the average person, or especially the small business person, is they have the debit card, which we've proven to see that people don't psychologically understand that they're spending money when they're using plastic. So whether it's a debit card or a credit card, when you're swiping that, you're not connecting that necessarily to spending money the same way as if you took money out of your wallet and put that down. You understand what you're doing. And for some reason, human beings, it's painful for them to turn around and actually put that money down. but there's no pain using the plastic. So you go to the bank machine, you after you've done your tracking, you go to the bank machine and you decide how much money you need per week, whether that's $20, $50, $100. You would know what that number is for that incidental spending, and you actually withdraw the cash, put it in your wallet, and that's what you're going to use, and you're not going to go back until next time, like whether it's next week or next month or next pay period. And that way it automatically disciplines you without it necessarily feeling so painful or so budget-like. Sit down and list the particular areas where you think you need a little bit more information, where you need to go and figure out those pieces that you don't have all the answers to yet. It just allows you to focus your energies in the right direction. So whether that's finding out more about insurance, whether that's looking at what's it going to cost me if I need space, or what kind of benefits can I use if I'm going to renovate something within my current house in order to use this for my business. Or maybe it's finding out more about what kind of grant programs are out there. There's all different things that you may want to be working on. Maybe it's as simple as putting some of these tools in place that I'm showing you today. So the starting point is taking those goals and putting them into smaller pieces, because what happens is, and they often talk about, certainly, you know, when we heard from the business development people, using the business plan that's maybe 5 years out or something like that, which is fine. However, you need to back it up so that you're looking at what is it you're going to do in the short term. First of all, it's more encouraging as you reach those goals. You can celebrate them, which is really important to pat yourself on the back. And it also makes everything flow a lot better if you're doing the things you need to do early in order to get where you want to go longer term. So break it down into short term, being sort of 1 to 6 months for sure, which is, and it may just be that you're going to go through and you're going to work on this prosperity plan, or you're going to write your goals down by next week, or you're going to set up a tracking system for what debts you have and what those interest rates are. Again, it can be very small things, but it's all very useful, and it really sets you in a much better position. Short term would also be in the next 1 to 2 years. So with what you're working on in your business plans, this is definitely going to be something you need to incorporate. Then there's, as you're growing and working on things in the midterm, what about that 3 to 5 year time frame? And this becomes something that's very much a living document. And so as you change, it too would change. And so it's sometimes fascinating to see you put down what you think you're going to do in the next 2 years or 5 years, and then what really happens or how you change it. And then, of course, it's always good to look at that longer term, which is the 5, 6, and beyond years. But don't start to try to do everything all at once. And beyond your business plan, what I'm suggesting with this is that you're working on a first step component with your financial plan in order to make sure that it's going to match up and you're going to be able to answer all those questions in your bigger business plan. I call this the exercise time. So you're creating a plan that's going to match your goals. So you set your goals in place. You've put some time horizons around them. So you want to now look at how do you reorganize those goals so that they're matching what you want to have happen, and what are you prioritizing? Maybe you put down, 4 goals. Which of those 4 goals are you going to make a priority again in that next 1 month to 6 months? What you want to look at is what is the particular action you're going to take that's going to have either the biggest results, it's going to be the thing that makes everything start to happen for you, or it's going to be something that causes everything to happen a little quicker. So again, when you're looking at the goals and you're looking at prioritizing, you want to see which of those are going to get you where you need to go the best. As I talked about, you know, the debit card and credit card being, you know, the bank's friend, not necessarily your friend. You want to use something sometimes to build in those disciplines yourself and help protect you. So you can call it a debit or credit card jacket, and it could simply be that it's a little, you know, a little plastic holder, or it's even a sticky note that you put on there, and it's going to tell you what amount you can pay off at the end of the month, or what amount do you have before you go into overdraft, so that just, you know, make sure that you're not getting yourself in any trouble the times that you are using the debit or credit card. And again, that walking around money, cash is king. You want to use the cash for the walking around money. The debit card or credit card are fine if it's like you're, you know, you're getting petrol points at the gas station, or you're getting other goodies, that there's a reason that you're using it, but you're knowing that limit and you're going to make sure that you don't go beyond it. But for your walking around money, use the cash and don't use the debit card, because then you're never going to understand what you're spending on. So we start by organizing yourself. So sit down and ask yourself some of the questions. So do you know what it is you need? So what are the items that you need in order to start that business? You know, is it space, or is it particularly insurance? Is it that you need to start working on the advertising plan, and so you're going to put some money around that? Do you need some specific supplies? You know, what is it that's going to really be that catalyst, and how much is that going to cost? So once you know what those needs are, then you would either in the process figure out what the costs are, do your homework on that. So that's really important when you're looking at projecting things going forward. And then look at what are those key factors that you have to have in place in order to do that. So as much as, you know, what you really love to do is your art, you need to look at what are the things that you put in place in order to allow you to do that. So what kind of insurance do you need? Do you need like a liability insurance? Do you need insurance to protect against theft? Do you need insurance to protect against fire? If you've got, you know, items that's your business items, you don't want to put those things in jeopardy. Do you need insurance if you go on an exhibition space or someone else's place, if you're putting on live performance? Do you need some insurance to be on a public space? Set up those systems, so the financial planning systems and the tracking systems, so that you know where you're at, and you make it work as simply as possible. Set up whatever proper accounts you have. So set up that separate bank account so that you understand whether you're making money or you're not making money. You don't want to have it commingled with your regular bank accounts. Do you need to set up an emergency fund? Or if you do set up an emergency fund, is it in a place where it's making the best money? With all of these, you also want to be looking at what are the tax factors. And then don't say no to free money, which in this I'm talking about, this will help you in the future. So for example, if you are establishing that emergency fund, which rule of thumb is the emergency fund is 3 months of expenses. So whatever it's costing you to run your business, you want to, one of your goals would be that you want to set up that emergency fund that's 3 months worth of your expenses in a pool. So when you've got that money there, it should be working for you. And so as a result, you want to make sure maybe you set it up in a special account that earns a little bit more interest, or in a tax-free savings account. Make sure that it's working for you. And then for any of these things, do you have the information at your fingertips, or do you have to go and research that? Do you need to, you know, put some feelers out? Do you need to talk to insurance people or an accountant or somebody who has the financial knowledge? Maybe it's, you know, at the regional business center, maybe it's a financial planner, you know, wherever you need to go and get your information. Maybe it's another artist that already has experience. So you want to put yourself in a really strong position, and that's empowering you. So you want to set up that emergency fund, one of the main things I can encourage you to do is make sure that it is not debit card accessible. You want an emergency fund that is, again, making a few extra dollars of interest for you, and it's not something that you can easily deplete. Put something in place that you're saving or investing. And for those of you that are doing, producing pieces of art that then you would sell, maybe you take a percentage from every sale and save that. Or if you are in a situation where you're getting commission work every month, or you're getting like a regular income, then you could set it up in sync with that. But if you don't have like a regular income, which oftentimes artists don't, it's that every time you get a gig or every time you get a sale. As much as your friends and family and colleagues may want to give you financial advice, unless they actually have been successful and have good experience, that's not who you want to take your information from. Most of them don't know what it is that you do, don't know, maybe, in some cases don't have any business experience. And so you want to search out the people who do. You want to go to the experts and find out what's going to work for you, because every one of you, as we've learned, every one of you have a very different skill set, and your businesses won't all look the same. And so as a result, you want to make sure that you're getting the right information from the right people. And once you decide what amounts you can do, stick to those and make it a regular habit. So again, if you have like intermittent business, then it's maybe a percentage from every sale, not that you're going to take every dollar and just go out and spend it and have fun, because that's not going to bring you closer to your goals. So one of the problems that you all are faced is, how much do you charge for your services, or how much do you charge for the artwork that you do? So you probably haven't spent a lot of time looking at this, but now you need to really start doing that. And so what is it that your materials cost? So if you're a dance studio or something like that, what does it cost to run that dance studio? Or if you're renting space, what is it costing to rent that space? Is there insurance involved? What are those costs? Is there, do you have to pay something for music or for some equipment or whatever? So you need to figure out what is it that it's costing you. If you're doing writing, maybe it's, helping with what are the production costs going to be to create that piece. Or if you're doing music, what are the production costs for that? If you're doing visual art, what is it costing you for your materials? What is it costing you to advertise? What is it costing you for commissions if you are doing where there's a shared commission because of the space that you're being exhibited in? Other questions is like, is there rent? For all of you, there may very well be. What are the insurances you need, and what are the costs? Do you have to pay for keeping the lights on and heat, or other types of items? Certainly you'd all probably have internet and phone to deal with. What is it going to cost you for marketing? So we learned from our social media expert, Nick, all the things you can do on social media, but they don't all come at a freebie. And that includes your website or any extra costs you're going to do for posting. And it may be that you've got to have somebody create the website, or maybe you've got to pay somebody to do the social media if you're not able to. So what is that going to cost? Are there production costs? Are there shipping costs? So if there is a product that you're sending out, and again, if you're using a website and that's where your products are being viewed and being purchased from an online system, oftentimes you will have shipping costs. Do you have to pay contractors? So are there other people that you have to enlist that are going to help you further your business? And if so, what kind of costs are they? And as we talked about before, you may want to be looking at that bartering system as well, that if you help somebody with, giving them the work that you do for free, they're going to reciprocate by giving you something else. And that way it's a different way of being able to get your business off the ground. I'm providing you the calculating budget spreadsheets so that you can see what your actual expenses are. And beyond that business plan that you're going to make, that's the longer term, you need to start, and this is sort of our starting point, is to figuring out what all those small incidental costs are. And then you can plug it into the other business plan sort of things. So I'll spend a few minutes showing you. That's pretty simple. You can use either Excel, or there are the Google Sheets as well. So you want to check out not only for you, but what is the market pricing, the particular product or service that you're providing. So go and check out, if somebody else is doing paintings, what are they charging? If somebody else is doing musical gigs, what is the going rate? If somebody is, doing poetry, or creating books, or creating a theater production or a movie, what is your price point for those kind of things, so that you have a feel for what's going on out there, and you're not just pricing yourself either way low or pricing yourself higher than what the market will bear. And an important thing is, how much do you need to earn to make a living? Because that's going to change how you price as well. So we know that you've got to look at all those expenses. That's one piece of how you figure out the pricing. But what is it that you need to earn a living, so that you then figure out, okay, well, if it's costing me, $100 for this particular service or product, and that's what it costs to produce it, well, maybe you need to be charging at least $200 based on the hours that you put into that, just as an example. And then when you do this, you also would know when to raise the prices. So if something changes, then you would need to raise the prices, because now the cost of creating that is higher than it was. Or maybe as time goes along and you get more known, then you're going to charge a bit more, because the goal is that you are going to earn a living out of this. One of the things that happens as you get your name out there is also you may become in higher demand. And the more popular you are, the more you're known, and the more your work starts to be something that people are looking for, it allows you to put your prices up. So it's important for you to realize again that this is something that's going to move and change as your business moves and changes. So once you've created that plan, it's really important to work it, make it work for you, sort of thing. So one of the things you want to do is review that plan regularly. So you would set yourself a time frame. It certainly doesn't have to be every week, but maybe every month, or at least every 6 weeks. And then, did you achieve what you meant to achieve? And if you did, pat yourself on the back and, treat yourself as a success. Make sure that you've identified that you've ticked off a box. You did what you wanted to do in it, and this is the result. And now you can move forward even better. Definitely don't be rigid. Don't put the plan in place and be like, one, I don't want to look at it again. And two, it can never change. You want to be really flexible, and you want to use those creative juices that you have to be innovative. Because certainly after living through a year of COVID, we realized how the world could change without us ever imagining it. So it's so important to be able to rework that plan, be able to look at, oh, okay, this didn't work, or this worked really well. I'm going to do more of that. And how can you be innovative? How can you make things work better for you? So once you have that attitude and you are regularly checking, you're going to revise it in order to adapt to those changes. And changes will happen even if they're small. Certainly one of the things that happens sometimes is, as you're successful, how do you cope with that success? How do you keep up with the demand? And hopefully that is the results of your businesses. Make sure that you're going to use the others that you need. So if it's not your strong suit to be the person who's keeping the records, then maybe look at who's a bookkeeper that you could hire that would do that. It would be, if you know your pricing, you're going to know, I can afford to have a person work 4 hours a week or 4 hours a month or whatever it is in order to keep my records up to date. As you grow, you would probably look to maybe getting an accountant. And depending on, you know, if you hit that big grant money, maybe you get an accountant quickly because you need to manage all this. And depending on your circumstances, if you need to have contracts in place or whatever, you may want to be, you know, reaching out and checking with a lawyer. So the planning equals success. Without the planning, the success is not going to work effectively. So as I said before, the plan is a living document. It's going to move and change as you move and change and as your business changes. And for sure, as it grows and as you grow your business, the plan will change. You want to expect this, you want to, you know, actually almost want this to happen. As much as it sounds, oh, well, I've done this work, so now that's checked off the list. That's fine, but it's not going to stay static all the time. And as I've mentioned before, you want to celebrate each of those elements that you've completed. You want to celebrate every time something goes well, and you don't want to beat yourself up if it doesn't. If it doesn't, then, you know, back to the drawing board, that living document, you're going to tweak it so that next time you can have the fireworks. So important, put all those financial pieces in place. And once you've got that done, then you can just move on and actually do the things that you do love to do. It's so important. The financial piece is just such a key thing. It really makes a difference in being able to feel like you're not being held down with all of the bookwork. So, you know, take the time to do that, and then you'll see how useful it all is. So I'm going to take a second and find our spreadsheet and a few other things. We'll go through the financial plan as well. And just bear with me for a second. So here is our calculating budgets. And basically, it's a simple Excel spreadsheet. You can change any of the words here. So you can change them to whatever is important to you. I put in some things like, obviously, these are things that most people would have to deal with if they had space. Maintenance, repairs, you know, work expenses, advertising, materials, etc. You could also put in rent, or a mortgage if you're buying a place or whatever the case may be. And so then you can just, in, you know, week one, maybe it's $50, you know, maybe it's $20 the next week, $30, $15, or maybe it's just twice a month and it's $50 there and $50 there. So you'll notice that when you do this, it adds it up for you. So there's your monthly amount, there's your annual amount, and it just allows you to keep track of what it's costing you, because it's giving you your annual total right there. So it just makes it a lot easier for you. This one's in Excel, and you can also use the Google Sheets as we talked about. And then I'm going to just go through that prosperity plan with you to show you how to use that I've sent off to you. So we've got a very summary thing here. It's actually a piece of mine. So it's a prosperity plan for artists. And you can fill it out, you know, easily with all. I made sure that I put all the fields. So one of the things you want to look at is like where you're going to be in the future. And so, you know, again, this is the longer term planning. So 5, 10, 15 years. if you have a partner that's in business, or maybe you have a family partner that is involved. Also, potentially you could be having children, either that this is something you need to factor in how that's going to work, or maybe they're going to help in the business as well. And there are tax benefits for using that. What about parents? And again, this may be something where you have somebody you're caring for, or it may be where they're, again, part of the business plan. What's your health situation and your family history, and how does that impact any of the plans that you have? And then accommodations, either where you live or work, or maybe where you live is also going to be where you work. And why are you choosing those accommodations, and where will that be in the future, or how that will change in the future? Then there's some financial fitness questions. So, talking about the cash flow like we talked about, and setting up the budgets, finding out about insurance, having that emergency fund, what kind of insurances you also may need, setting those financial goals in place, making sure you're maximizing those best rates, looking at where you are today, but then where do you want to go, and how are you going to get there, and who's going to help you. And also making sure that you've, protected the work that you create. So here, these goals, I know we've talked a lot about goals. Hopefully you'll understand how important they are, and that's why we keep on coming back to them. So these goals are going to be more connected to that financial piece, and are going to be connected to what do you need to do to get things going. So you're going to write down those, and they may be connected to the bigger goals. Hopefully they will be connected to the bigger goals. And then also prioritize them. So which one of these is going to be the ones that are going to make the most impact for you, as we talked about before. And once you've said which are important and you prioritize them, then you want to put some time horizons. So as I said, maybe it's, I'm going to, between now and 2 weeks from now, I'm going to put together that spreadsheet, or I'm going to, find out about the insurance, or I'm going to set up that emergency fund, whatever it is that's important to you. And then what you think you're going to accomplish, what is that goal going to do for you? Because you want to reinforce where the value is. And you're going to complete it, and when are you going to review it by? Then there's some information, just some successful budgeting tips. And then paying yourself first, which is that putting that money aside, because if you just spend it on fun things, then there's nothing left over in order for you to do the things you need to do. So there's information about that. And when you get your successes, to celebrate them. The pay yourself first, I put some things in place for you to actually do some work on this. So you want to list where the spending is happening, and could some of that spending go to saving? So your rewards for the month or the week, and it could be, maybe it's coffee at Tim's, maybe you like to buy books or subscriptions, maybe it's like clothing or whatever. So what are some of these things that are being spent on that could change in order to maybe get the equipment you need, or be able to put that exhibit or that product launch on? Maybe there's a project, or you're going to have to travel in order to do something with your business. So then you're going to shift the cash from, and it may be as little as, a loonie or $5 from some of those other spaces into into the savings component, or into where you're going to start to make a difference in your world. And again, you can rework any of this. That's why there's lots of blank spaces, spontaneous stuff, lottery, small treats. Again, just use it, whatever works for you. And how is, whatever those savings are, how is that going to achieve those goals? So, do you need that next piece of equipment, or do you need to buy a certain amount of supplies? Do you need to amass some money to do advertising? And then again, you're going to rearrange that spending. Here's the sheet that I talked about with connection to the interest rates. So here you can put down all the different places, and whether these are your particulars. There's lots of blank space again for the loans or the debts that you might have. So how much is outstanding? What is that payment, whether it's monthly or biweekly or weekly? What is the interest rate, the account number, and when is it due? This will keep you on track. And the interest rate puts it up front as to, okay, where am I going to go and attack that debt first and get rid of the high interest debt? And then this allows you to look at what is it that you're going to do that's going to change things. So deductions through your business or setting up the TFSA, where are the tax advantages for you? Can you use the TFSA as your emergency fund? Are you getting the deductions you want, or income splitting with your spouse and kids as far as the business goes? And if you don't know more about that, that's one of the things that would be part of your investigation and part of your plan to do. And then with your new prosperity plan, you're going to start it by a certain date and by doing certain things. And in today's dollars, you need this many dollars a year to live. So this is what you want to find out, how much money you need in order to create that income for yourself. And I'm going to do the certain actions in order to create that, comfortable working life. And then again, this is just sort of following it up at the end. I'm going to complete the data sheets by a certain time, examine my options. So if you need to do some research, what is that research? Do you have to go phone somebody? Do you have to go read, check things out on the internet, etc.? You're going to work on whichever one of these that are key to you. So it could be your budget, clearing off debts. It might be costing out your marketing expenses, set your pricing for your artistic work. What date are you going to review? And then be ready to make more changes. And then here allows you some space for doing those adjustments. Here allows you some space for having those successes and enjoying the fruits of your labor. So that's everything that we are going to spend time on today. And I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions or if you need anything, and we will be happy to work with you anytime on that. So just send out an email. I'm going to be sending all these things off to you so you can work on them. And if you have any questions, just check in with us again. Thanks and have a great week.